Hello guys, this is your friend. We are back with a new fanfic. Which is what if Naruto was banished by Konoha and gained Forgetten powers part 1. And if you enjoy this fanfic, then please press the like button and subscribe to my channel for more fanfic like this. And now let's start the fanfic. It had been over 4 years since Sasuke's attempted defection to Orochimaru, and his subsequent return. It had also been over 4 years since Naruto had been cast out of the Land of Fire. It may have been a mistake on Tsunade's part. She was drunk and angry at the time, but she placed the final nail in the coffin when she stamped the paper with a chakra-laced seal. She took away his jutsu, his summoning contract with the toads, and the secrecy that protected him by the Third's law. He left, fearing that several of those he considered friends would become too blinded to see past the fox inside of him, and his fears were well-founded. Casting aside his name, he left the village without his necklace or forehead protector, heartbroken and disappointed, never to be seen again. Until now. Land of Waves. The Land of Waves prospered under the freedom they acquired with the death of the tycoon Gato. Hoping to encourage more business and prosperity, the Wave Daimyo requested the daimyos of the 5 great nations hold their meeting in his small nation, to which they agreed. Among the daimyos, the youngest was the Wind Daimyo, ruler of the Land of Wind. Her father had passed away in his sleep recently, and she had received the education necessary to take his place. Each daimyo was accompanied by select guards, most from the guardians of their nation, such as the once renowned 12 guardian ninjas in the Land of Fire. The young Wind Daimyo had been accompanied by a single, private bodyguard, who she sought out for this assignment shortly after her father's passing. He accompanied her to the meeting, which was finally beginning to wrap up. A figure wrapped in a tan cloak with torn and frayed edges sighed quietly. The cowl he wore kept his face concealed in a shadow, hidden from view. Beneath the cloak was an orange, long-sleeved shirt made of highly breathable fabric, and a pair of long black pants. He wore combat sandals that were common among ninja, on his hands were fingerless gloves, and on his arms were bracers made from chakra-conductive steel and laced with various seals. Thank you all for attending, snapped the cloaked figure out of his idle thoughts. The meeting was over, and now the Wind Daimyo was walking over to him. She wore a formal dress that was laced in 2 shades of purple, and her long, black hair had been rolled up. Her lips were cherry-colored, a sign that she used a brand of lipstick made from desert berries commonly found in her nation, and her eyes were purple pools that made finely cut amethyst diamonds look flawed. When her eyes met his sapphire-colored eyes, she smiled. The Fire Daimyo wants to discuss business with me, so we'll be traveling to his estate and then from there to the Land of Wind, she told him. I know you aren't comfortable there, but will you stay with me? He hesitated for a moment, but nodded, and the pair left. Land of Fire, Land of Wind border. 2 weeks after the meeting in the Land of Waves, the Wind Daimyo and her bodyguard had begun to make their way towards the border between the Land of Fire and Land of Wind. While the Fire Daimyo offered to enlist ninja to escort her, she insisted that her bodyguard was enough to protect her. It was truly risky, considering that she would make an excellent target for bandits, traveling in a coach with only him as protection, but she had absolute faith in him. While she would admit it was a bit foolish, she wanted to spend time with him. It was only by chance that she ran into him that day at the temple, when she was preparing to enlist a few of the men there to protect her for the journey. He had only returned for a moment of rest, planning to continue his plans to explore the world. Her emotions guided her, as she recalled her memories of the 6 months they spent together, as he worked under her father, who replaced the previous Wind Daimyo, whose greed had been a primary cause of invasion attempt in Konoha. He had entered the care of the Wind Temple a little over 2 years ago, casting aside his past life and the cheerfulness he once held. It was during those 6 months they grew closer as he protected her, and she learned all of his secrets, and they shared a few passionate nights, but they knew that wouldn't last. He started traveling around after those 6 months were over, leaving her unable to find him until he recently returned to the Wind Temple for a few days. She wanted to appoint him as a permanent bodyguard, but he refused on the grounds that staying in one place too long would end badly. He could only accompany her briefly, and she accepted that. As the coach that the Wind Daimyo rode in made its way closer to the border, its protector held out his hand and halted them. Pulling out sealing tags, he threw them into the air, and the slips shot to the ground around the coach and formed a protective wall. And kunai with explosive tags rained down, impacting the wall and detonating with more force than heat, not really designed to kill outright, but still cause damage. The constant explosions caused smoke to cover the coach and the cloaked man, leaving no visibility, as 4 missing nins rushed towards the scene, with intent to capture the injured Wind Daimyo for ransom. Attacking her was a mistake, a voice carried itself on the wind and reached their ears. From out of the smoke, the cloaked figure dashed towards them. In his right hand was a small rod, roughly a foot long, engraved with seals. Pushing chakra into the seals on the end points, and visualizing a monk's spade in his mind, the seal created a solid chakra version, while running wind chakra through the blade ends to make them razor sharp. He gripped the pole portion with both hands and brought the crescent blade around, leaving a greenish arc in the air, as it decapitated one of the missing nins. 2 others positioned themselves to the left and right of the cloaked figure, and threw a handful of kunai. A sweep of the weapon and they were batted out of the sky, before he pushed chakra out of his feet in a quick burst, rocketing forward towards the missing nin to his left and planting the spade horizontally into the missing nin's ribcage, bisecting his heart. The missing nin on his rear hesitated for a brief moment, weighing the option of fighting or fleeing, so that cloaked figure gave him some advice. Flee. My only duty is to protect the Wind Daimyo. I won't chase you. The man swallowed deeply and decided to take his advice, but a kunai with an exploding tag embedded itself into the back of his skull before detonating, leaving the majority of his body scattered into bits across the grass and painting the field the color of battle. The cloaked figure glared at the remaining missing nin, who had just killed one of his own comrades. Why? He simply asked. Why not? The missing nin shrugged. We're only in this to get the payday from capturing the Wind Daimyo. These guys were just genin, and by extension, cannon fodder. That comrade crap isn't useful in this type of life. I see. The cloaked figure pointed the spade end of the pole at the missing nin, taking careful aim at the man, who went through a series of hand seals for a wind release jutsu. You should have just retreated. Pumping chakra into seal on the spade end of the original rod, the pole extended as the man spit out a ball of compressed air. The spade cut it in half and kept going, as the ruptured ball released the compressed pressure, resulting in a shockwave that knocked the cloaked figure's hood back. 2 thuds were heard, as the missing nin's head fell to the ground and was accompanied a split second later by his body. Several meters away, a Konoha Junin with long black hair and white eyes watched from the treetops and suppressed his chakra as best he could, not needing to use his Byakugan at this distance. He came over when he felt the chakra spike from what looked like a barrier around a daimyo's carriage. It wasn't his place to interfere, but he recognized the chakra signature of the cloaked warrior and had to see if it was who he thought it was. When the hood fell, it revealed a blonde-haired young man, with 6 whisker marks on his cheeks and cold, blue eyes that had been tempered with experience. While those eyes were colder than before, he had no doubt who they belonged to. A former Konoha nin who had been banished 4 years ago. Naruto Uzumaki, the Jinchuriki of the 9-tailed demon fox. Uzumaki protected the Wind Daimyo. His thought I try to bring him back to the village, but the daimyo has no other guards, which could cause a problem if I left her stranded without protection. Then should I escort them both to the village? Neji, Naruto called, causing Neji's heart to skip a beat. You can try to suppress your chakra, but I can recognize it while you're in my territory. I'm telling you right now, if you try to force me back to the village, I'll retaliate in full force. Neji hesitated before completely stepping from behind the tree trunk and meeting Naruto's gaze head-on. Your banishment ended last year. The Hokage has been searching for you since you left. I'm not going back to that hellhole again. Naruto stated plainly, before turning his back on the Junin and proceeding back to his charge sealed in a barrier. Tell the old lady that I'm never returning to Konoha after what she did. Can you honestly say it would be safe for me there? Neji couldn't, so he kept his mouth shut. It wasn't exactly funny that a good deal of his old comrades called for his death on the revelation of his tenant. Shikamaru already put two and two together and was fine with it, and since he was cool with it, Choji was cool with it. Tenten didn't really see anything that screamed demon fox in him, while Shino and Neji could relate. Sasuke was neutral about it, having been in shock due to the effects of the reinforced sealing on the cursed mark. Unfortunately, several of the rest of the rookies had stupid reasons for hating him, even when most of their parents told them better. Ino and Sakura were still Sasuke fangirls and angry that he was hurt. Kiba was jealous of his power and angry at their defeats by his hands, and Lee joined in whenever Sakura was around because he wanted Sakura's approval. They were too easily swayed by the public. Hinata though, she had it the worst. The Hyuga elders systematically broke her meek personality down, telling them a twisted tale of how the fox manipulated her. They said that everyone in the village knew of her crush and pitied her because they could see he was just playing with her. They said there was no man possibly dense enough not to notice after several years and that he strung her along. Okay, they knew he was, but why tell the truth? She put up a fight for a few months, which was actually surprising, but being around the other rookies fueled the pressure and she snapped. The girl was basically now how Sasuke was when it came to Itachi, but with the mention of Naruto. Her father thought about telling her Naruto wasn't that bad, but she was showing promise now. While he didn't hate the boy, if hatred made her stronger, he could just apologize on her mother's grave that it was best for the clan. A small portion of himself hated him for it, but then he pushed that portion away and started grooming her into an appropriate heiress. I thought so, Naruto muttered. And to make his point, he flared his chakra outward in a pulse that nearly pushed Neji off the tree trunk, blowing his hair back and breaking the tie that held it together at the end. The message was clear: don't come after me. Neji sighed and made his way back to Konoha. It would be roughly a half-day's trip to get back, and by then they'd have crossed the border into the land of wind. At least they knew where to look for now. With Naruto and the wind daimyo. Naruto, the wind daimyo addressed him without a suffix, indicating how close they were. They'll come for you now, you know that right? I know, Kana. Naruto stated emotionlessly, eyes closed. You aren't a member of the 8 Wind Spades since you retired to travel, but if we hurry back, we can have you reinstated as one of my, she started, before he cut her off. No, he said without raising his voice. I can't stay in one place for too long. As soon as you are safe, I'll leave the nation and head to Taki to see her, although I'll probably stop at Suna for a brief visit. Gaara won't be happy that I was in the land of wind and didn't tell him. The 8 Wind Spades were the Wind Daimyo's answer to the Fire Daimyo's former 12 guardian ninjas. Skilled warriors and ninja monks from the Wind Temple, who directly served the Wind Daimyo should she choose them to. The Wind Temple wasn't as well known as the Fire Temple, being located deep in the large deserts of the Land of Wind, which was why he sought them out in the first place. She stared at him sadly for a moment and then nodded. I'll have the guards at the border escort us to Suna instead of straight home. I haven't been to Suna since I took my father's place anyway. Thank you, Naruto said softly. It's no problem at all, she fidgeted before continuing. Actually, if I could make one selfish request. He opened his eyes and raised an eyebrow, remembering her last selfish request, which led to things. I don't know, it has been a while, but we're close to the border and we both know that the other bodyguards will come into view well before. No, not that, she blushed slightly, before shaking her head to clear her mind of those thoughts. Do you remember the summoning contract we discussed before the trip? He nodded. Will you sign it? Just so I could feel a little more comfortable. Sure. He smiled softly. Konoha. Hokage's office. Junin Neji Hyuga had just departed from the office of Tsunade Senju, the 5th Hokage of the village hidden in the leaves. Before he entered, she hadn't even opened the bottle of Fire Temple sake she had hidden away, vowing to never drink again on the job over minor problems like paperwork. After he left, the bottle was empty, and Tsunade was silently crying upon hearing how someone she saw as a little brother no longer wanted to return to his home. The good news was that they finally found him and he appeared to still be capable of taking care of himself and could now use some kind of sensory techniques and seals. The bad news was now she had to retrieve him, and he would put up a fight, more than likely giving his captors a reason to use lethal force. All because of her mistake, 4 years ago. The Uchiha retrieval mission went to hell and back and the civilian portion council was livid that the Uchiha was hurt. Once some of the sensors reported traces of the fox's chakra were found on the battlefield, they exploded, ordering Naruto's death. Naturally, neither the elders, Danzo, or Tsunade would give that a second thought, but a dark idea did creep into her head. Not having much political pull with being the newly appointed Hokage on civil matters, Tsunade admitted to herself she needed more support since the number of civilians surpassed the ninjas on the council. So, in order to make things calm, she offered to exile him for 3 years, secretly planning to have Jiraiya take him, in order to train the power he wielded. The ninjas were disapproving, but the civilians were happy enough, and Danzo saw it as a chance to grab the boy and have him join his root operatives. Still feeling somewhat dirty over her decision and the nightmares of politics, which compared to Jiraiya she wasn't as proficient, in addition to concern over his injuries and the freaking paperwork involved in the botched mission, she drank a lot. Shizune was still tired from trying to save Neji Hyuga's life, so she didn't review the paperwork like she normally did, and a certain civilian merchant who had some connections slipped in certain clauses to the simple exile contract that basically said, stay out of Konoha until the time period is up. When she stamped it with him and Sakura, who wasn't exactly happy, as witnesses he glanced over it and asked her if she was really doing this. Her answer was basically, yes, now get out so I can deal with this headache. He left heartbroken, but didn't say another word. What she didn't realize at the time was what those new clauses stated. They essentially booted him out of the land of fire with the backing of the daimyo, who didn't read it but signed it since he owed the merchant, stripped him of the right to use genjutsu or ninjutsu through pain compliance with seals, broke off his summon contracts, and essentially screwed him over multiple times. Not a day later, he left the village gates at night, showing the guards the banishment papers and asking them to keep it secret from everyone. They thought it was a bit harsh, but since it had her seal on it, they couldn't question it. Naruto Uzumaki had left the village in the rain, with only 2 people knowing it. The next day things came to light. Princess, a voice called from the window, revealing a certain super pervert. He did not look amused. We need to talk. Jiraiya. She squinted her eyes, having been doing paperwork for the last 12 hours without rest and semi-drunk, while somehow nursing a hangover at the same time. What's wrong? The Toads contacted me and told me Naruto broke the contract, on orders of the Hokage, according to the elders. I didn't tell him to break his contracts, she shook her head. I sent you a scroll about his banishment and the training plan once he left the hospital in a few days, didn't I? I thought it was strange, so I rushed back, but that's not the worst thing. He sat down in a chair. They're talking about the Kyuubi, in public. That's a violation of Sensei's law. She began, only to be cut off by him slamming a paper on the desk. When she read it her eyes widened. Oh no. It was a decree that the Third's law was null and voided. On her orders. Tsunade. Jiraiya's eyes narrowed. Please tell me you actually read what you stamped. She shuffled through the desk drawers to find the copy of the banishment orders and reviewed it, and her heart broke the moment she saw what she conscripted him to. Oh dear God. Jiraiya snatched the paper and reviewed it before chewing her out in anger not seen since she had nearly followed through with Orochimaru's offer. I warned you not to underestimate the council. You have to read what you sign. We have to get him in here and get the council. Retract it. She realized just why he had that look on his face before he left. They rushed to the hospital to learn he never returned, and after visiting his home and retrieving the 2 things he left behind, they asked the gate guards who were active that night. After sending out repair orders from her smashing the gate in rage, she convened the council and demanded whoever added the clauses come clean, otherwise she would have Inoichi search all their memories. After the argument that such an action was illegal, the pompous man revealed himself, pointing out that once she stamped it and with the fire daimyo's backing, they couldn't go back on the orders. He reasoned that the demon was hurting his sales or some other nonsense. He apparently forgot that no amount of money will save you from trained assassins and was killed later that day. No one was sure who did it. Danzo could have ordered root operatives to do it, since having your weapon not being able to use ninjutsu and genjutsu was a hindrance. Jiraiya could have done it, or a few dozen others, but no one really looked into it. Either way, the damage was done and he was gone. Jiraiya set out to find Naruto after telling her that he couldn't be angry at her since he neglected the boy for 12 years and things got bad enough that he would leave in silence once he knew the law was rescinded, but he was disappointed at the fact that this could have been avoided by her not hitting the bottle so often. She eased up on her drinking after that and brushed up on politics while working towards weakening the civilians' power in the council. The nations Naruto helped in the past weren't pleased about the situation, but they didn't do anything outwardly. Secretly, they planned to give him asylum and keep Konoha out of the loop if he showed up. Tsunade-sama, Shizune snapped her back to the present. What will we do about Naruto? We need answers. She wrote up a letter to both Gaara and the Wind Daimyo. Send the messenger hawks out. Once we hear back from them, we'll set up tracking teams to go after him. There's still a chance we can reason with him before we'll have to use force. A very small chance, a cynical voice pointed out in her head. Suna. Kasuke's office. Hey Gaara. Naruto sat a chair in the office. Naruto Uzumaki. Gaara pushed his paperwork into a pile and sat it to the right of him. Imagine my surprise when I received a notice an hour ago from my ninja at the village entrance, telling me that you were with the new Wind Daimyo as a bodyguard. Gaara's mad, Naruto thought, a small sweat drop gracing the back of his head. I have a fairly good reason for not telling you where I was all this time. Explain. Gaara crossed his fingers and rested his head on them. Naruto applied a seal to the floor and put chakra into it, ensuring what he said would remain in secret. Back when I was banished, you didn't have enough political power to keep me hidden here and under your protection without it eventually leaking to Konoha. I was angry, upset, and disappointed, and I didn't want to have anything to do with Konoha since I couldn't be a ninja anymore. The more I thought about how much I endured over the years to earn everyone's respect, only to lose everything, the more I realized how I would never be accepted there by more than a dozen out of several thousands. Naruto took a deep breath. The things I went through were bad enough, and no child should have ever suffered through the things we containers went through. I felt like I was going to lose myself in anger and rage, so I sought out a new path and traveled to the Wind Temple, since the Fire Temple was still in the Land of Fire and the nearest nations with temples weren't exactly friendly to previous Konoha nin, especially Aiwa, although I didn't know why until I managed to figure out my heritage. Quote. Gaara nodded, seeing the reasoning behind his logic. It was still a cold thing to do considering they were friends, but he did see why he did what he did. So, tell me about the past 4 years. I spent 3 years in the Wind Temple service, Naruto told his old friend, removing his gloves and showing him the seals burned into the back of his hands. After the old lady stamped those papers, they engraved these seals on my skin not an hour later. If I try to form any hand seals, they burn severely and stop me, so I can't use regular ninjutsu anymore. Gaara's eyes narrowed slightly. I'm surprised you didn't find some way around that. I've thought of several, Naruto shrugged. I could sever the limbs and hope the fox would regenerate them, or I could alter the seals using my own expertise. The reason I don't is because it serves as a reminder for the betrayal inflicted upon me. I see. Gaara exhaled slowly. He doubted he could convince Naruto to rejoin Konoha or even Suna at this point. Anyway, since I couldn't use most regular jutsu anymore, I focused solely on chakra control and manipulation, along with mediation, taijutsu, weapons, and sealing arts. During those 3 years, I spent 6 months under the care of the previous Wind Daimyo, who was the father of the current one. After those 6 months were up, I traveled a bit. I was in the land of iron and studied the samurai techniques. Did you know they could use chakra? I did not, Gaara droned. The age of the samurai had long since passed, but I was not aware they could use chakra. The land of iron samurai focus on shape manipulation rather than nature manipulation. Naruto held out his hand and sent chakra into it. Visualizing a blade, chakra extended and formed the length of a broadsword's blade with an ethereal spiral design. I spent a few months under their care to expand my skills there. So I know quite a few tricks that I developed in combination to the exercises that I went through when I started learning the Rasengan. Hell, I found a way to combine the skills I picked up to do things I never dreamed of, including acting like a censor. Naruto dispelled the blade. After that, I followed the advice of a certain fox and went to my ancestral home, where I expanded my knowledge on sealing. Using the memories of his previous hosts, I discovered a hidden storage facility holding the last copies of the arts of the Uzumaki clan. If you want, I can tweak your seal if the raccoon dog is still bothering you. Tempting, but Jiraiya-sama beat you to it when he passed by looking for you a few years ago. Gaara smirked. While I am not pleased you did not seek out my assistance, I understand fully and hold no hard feeling about it. Left unsaid was that Naruto and the nine-tailed demon fox were on moderately pleasant terms. Those countless hours of meditation provided him with easier access to his mindscape, and even if the fox wouldn't admit it, he enjoyed the occasional company. Hell, the fox handed over the memories of its previous hosts for free as long as Naruto agreed to tamper with the seal and change the mindscape into something more comfortable than a sewer. Eventually he even learned the fox's name, Kurama. Thanks to the additional knowledge he picked up, he managed to recreate his mother and father's signature techniques. He could use his mother's chakra chains through shape manipulation, and while he couldn't directly copy his father's Hiraishin formula, he created a similar technique by using a modified summoning contract formula that would enter him into a semi-contract and then reverse summon him to the location. The only downside was that it could only be used on other living things, although he did follow in his father's footsteps and incorporate the formula into the seal of a certain female container, to be activated if she was ever in trouble by sending a distress signal to a seal on Naruto's body. I also ran into the container of the seven tails when I was passing near Taki, a girl named Fu. Naruto stayed quiet for a minute. They didn't even allow her to stay in their village, making her stay in the forest around it. I stayed with her for a month or so in between my time in the land of iron and visiting the land of whirlpools, and then I went back for only a few days before I came back to visit the Wind Temple and met with Kana. Left unsaid was the fact that she suffered like they did, if not worse. Gaara's eyes steeled at the silent realization. Do you want me to send a letter to their village leader or approach in a different manner? Translation. Offer her asylum and smuggle her out. I snuck into the village and confronted Shibuki on it. Naruto's eyes flashed red for a moment. He said his hands were tied by his advisors and council, and he felt it was safer for her outside the village. Needless to say, after I resisted the urge to assassinate several people, I went out of my way to make her as comfortable as I could. She's a really sweet girl and a lot like I was, masking her pain behind a joyful facade to the point that even Chome, her demon, felt guilty about being placed in her. I was working with her on controlling her Biju's chakra since our two were on decent terms. Naruto hesitated for a brief moment before looking at Gaara seriously. She deserves better than what she's been through. Next to Kana, she's really the only other woman I would go out of my way to protect right now without a moment's hesitation. Unfortunately, he could only control himself up to 3 tails due to the fact that his own negative emotions added to the fox's negative emotions, meaning anything higher would equal a stage 2 transformation. The memories of his mother and her discussion with the first container told him that love was needed to combat the hatred, but the hatred he held inside for many years far surpassed his other emotions. Yes, He could control the cloak at Three Tails by remembering what he went through with Kana and Fu. It was passion and caring love, but he only knew them for a short time compared to all those years of suffering. Gaara nodded once. He immediately understood how close they were to him and would most likely level a village to protect them. If this information got back to Konoha or someone else, it could be used against him. Everything you have said so far stays with me. Gaara reached for another set of papers. Regardless, I trust that you will be gracing Suna with your presence whenever you find yourself in the Land of Wind, no matter the politics involved. It wasn't a question. Sure. Naruto smiled. But it may be a minute. I plan on heading north at full speed as soon as night falls to visit her, after I sign the summoning contract that Kana wants me to, since Konoha will probably be stationing ninja across the border in a few days. You'll probably receive a messenger hawk in a few minutes. I'll wait a few hours after midnight to order my ninja to look for you within the walls until the next day, and then tell them that you departed. I was not inclined to hold you, as you were under the daimyo's protection. That should give you a head start to enter deep enough into the land of fire to make it within a few days, so long as you don't get caught. Thanks, Gaara. He pulled out a small pocket scroll and placed it on his desk. This can instantly transfer information to a similar scroll on me. We can use it to stay in touch. I've given one to Kana and will get Fu one once I reach her. In a cave somewhere, several cloaked astral figures gathered in front of a statue, and a voice rang through the air. The Nine Tails has appeared, the leader's voice echoed. Now, we no longer need to hold back on the retrievals. Hidan, Kakuzu, you two shall start by retrieving the Nanabi. In the forest surrounding the hidden village of Taki, a green-haired woman, with mint-green hair, orange eyes, and a caramel skin tone slept blissfully in her home. The village would not waste resources on building her a house once they kicked her out, not that she trusted most them to not line the thing with explosive tags. Luckily her tenant used a bit of its power to compel the insects in the forest to lend a helping hand. They gnawed through the bark of one of the thickest trees they could find and hollowed out the trunk with such precision and smoothness that you could rub your bare skin across the wood and feel the cool touch, right down to your bones without getting a splinter. This was done using a combination of certain fluids that the insects produced to cause a chemical reaction similar to running a wax buffer across everything. It was roughly the size of a master bedroom and a half, with notches hollowed out for storing things. Her bed was spun through the use of foliage and silk, and her essentials were bought to her personally by Shibuki, whom she actually trusted. Her modest but alluring figure was outlined by the smooth and sensationally soft sheets that Naruto had bought for her during his last visit. Naruto kept a very generous sum of money in one of the many sealing arrays drawn in invisible ink on his skin, earned through his ridiculous luck in casinos, and he learned to budget well in his travels. He told Fu he'd like to restore his mother's village one day, and with what he made, it wouldn't take too long. The pair spent quite some time under them, enjoying each other's company. Just recalling the nights they spent in the throes of passion and loving embrace afterwards left her breathing slightly labored. Not to be a downer, her tenant spoke from her mindscape, destroying her wondrous reminiscent moment. The little guys are clamoring that two dangerous guys have entered the forest. By little guys, it meant the smaller insects of the forest. Fu stirred awake, silently swearing about being roused from her slumber, and mentally vowing to kill whoever it was that caused her tenant to force her awake. That's the thing, Fu girl, Chome buzzed. The little guys are saying that they smell like death, that they have the scent of fresh blood. One of them has a scratched-out forehead protector with the village's emblem, and apparently one of them swears more than you did that night that Kurama's host did that thing with. Okay, I get it. Fu sent out orders to have the insects gather more intel, while she got dressed in her orange combat bra and panties, sleeveless white midriff shirt, long white arm warmers, fishnet armor and shorts, and short white apron skirt. She took the orange hair clip that Shibuki's father had gotten her when she was younger and pinned it to her hair, while placing a necklace that had a charm sealed in amber, given to her by Naruto after she successfully signed the beetle contract, around her neck, and tied her forehead protector around her arm. Lastly, she looked over to a wooden cylinder that was almost as long as she was, lying against the trunk wall. The wood had an intricate design and was made from the finest trees grown from the first Hokage, whom gave the village Chome in the first place. It was a gift for the first Jinchuriki, to serve as a hive for the beetles that served her like a queen would for an aburame. It was divided into layers on the inside, and the insects were nurtured on chakra and the wood, which could actually repair itself with a little help from Fu. A portion of Fu hated the first Hokage, almost wishing that assassination mission that a long-dead missing nin failed on was successful. It was because he gave the village Chome that she suffered. But somehow, she doubted that he knew the village would treat the host of the Biju like animals, seeing as Naruto told her that according to the memories Kurama shared, his wife was the first one. She blamed Chome at first, but the Nanabi didn't ask to be sealed away. She'd be lying if she didn't say that a small part of her blamed Shibuki and his dad for her treatment, even though they were the most humane people in the village towards her. She hated her parents, whom Shibuki's father told her left after she was chosen to be the next container on the fact that she was simply born at the wrong place and wrong time, unlike Naruto's who died protecting him. The first Hokage, Shibuki, and his father may have played a role in her fate, but they at least understood the consequences and accepted their part in it, unlike her parents and the villagers who abused her. She would have accepted death without hesitation if she didn't meet Naruto and the comfort he brought. She practically threw herself into a relationship with him over the course of the full month they spent together after he left the Land of Iron, and thanks to a certain series of orange-colored books she pilfered from a Kusa-nin that tried to infiltrate the village, she didn't mind if he brought a friend along. Wrapping the hive cylinder inside a cloth and strapping it to her back, she sprouted 2 wings and took flight through the forest. With Hidan and Kakuzu, the sacrifices from earlier said the Nanabi should be somewhere around here, but it's a goddamn maze of trees and bugs, a man with slick-back silver hair and purple eyes commented. Kakuzu, you know this place right? Is it close yet? I don't think we'll need to go in any further. Hidan, the tanned man with a black mask, empty green eyes, and a slashed tacky forehead protector. She found us. Fu landed a dozen feet away from the duo, withdrawing her wings. Hidan ran his hand through his hair, eyeing the Fu up and down, before rubbing his hand together. She'll make a fine tribute. We need her alive, Kakuzu reminded his partner. Touch me and I'll take your arms off. Fu put her hands on her hips. I don't know what you two are doing here, but this forest is mine. Get out, or I'll show you how I keep my carnivorous friends fed. Feisty. I've got this one. Hidan licked his lips. I can't wait to get a taste of your blood. She's mine and mine alone. Fine by me, the other man shrugged. There's no bounty on her anyway. Considering who trained her, she'll probably be a water type with some lightning moves, but we're far enough from any water source outside the atmosphere and any she generates. Just don't underestimate her. Come get some. Fu held her right hand out. Water gathered from the air and formed droplets, clumping together and solidifying into a curved blade that she held in front of her as she slid into a combat stance. Hidden waterfall style. Water slicing blade. The priest unleashed a battle cry and charged. The 2 weapons clashed repeatedly, leaving sparks from the collision of hardened water and steel. Hidan savored the battle, trying to dig into her caramel flesh with his sharp tool and get at the fluids inside her to consume them and make them his own, their bodies joined in a bond beyond flesh. The 2 eventually took the battle to the trees, running along the trunk diagonally and spiraling to the tip, where the priest unleashed a strong blow using the cable and she blocked, but it knocked her into the air. He jumped, spinning the scythe above his head before he swung it down. Fu blocked once again, but was smashed straight into the ground and left a crater. She clenched her teeth and lunged backwards, avoiding the motion he made to pierce her with his tool, resisting to the bitter end. He truly enjoyed the game of cat and mouse, where all he needed to do was get a single lick of her lifeblood. He tossed the scythe past her and it anchored into the ground, where the cable retracted and started pulling him in closer before she could react. He wrapped his fingers around her throat. Hands off, I'm taken. The water-slicing blade cleaved through the priest's non-dominant arm at the shoulder with little resistance, and she followed up with a thrust through his chest and a kick to dislodge him from the blade, tossing his corpse to the scythe planted in the ground. One down, Fu turned to the green-eyed, masked man who just shook his head. The insects of the forest sent a series of inaudible signals to Fu, who dove to the left and avoided the triple-bladed scythe, looking at the not-dead priest. Damn, my arm. Hidan swore. Kakuzu, get my arm back on so I can maim this bitch. Kakuzu. Fu recalled the name from the list of tacky missing nin she was forced to memorize, along with her former masters. Another series of signals had Fu flip back to avoid a sharp net of black threads coming from the Heart Stealer. Was that Earth Grudge Fear? Seems like you're informed, Kakuzu mused. My old village was at least smart enough to have their weapon recognize certain techniques. I thought they would hamper your knowledge and abilities, since your former master was also a missing nin. That might be why the poor bastards we caught were so quick to give you up. He was right, to an extent. Fu had been trained by Suian before he became a missing nin, who saw her as a weapon. He treated her harshly in training, but it was still better than most of the villagers, which he pointed out repeatedly. He was planning to nurture her anger and turn it against the village, while using that trust and dependence on him when he came back to take the hero's water. Fu had been out on a mission and was away from her home during his return and death at the hands of Naruto. She didn't blame Naruto. Suian had stabbed Shibuki, and considering he was the closest thing to a childhood friend she had, that rid her of all kind thoughts of the man, no matter how few. The fact that he turned traitor only made the villagers spurn her even more as the cause, leaving her to learn from experience with the techniques and strategies Suian taught her since no one else would. At least until Naruto came along. You're ancient, how are you still alive? She muttered. Generally speaking, there weren't many old ninja due to their lifestyle. Only the very strong or very lucky lived that long. She looked at the priest, who should have been dead from the chest wound. Both of you, neither one of you is normal. This coming from someone with a demon sealed inside her. Kakuzu rolled his eyes at the hypocrisy, sending some threads to reattach his partner's arm. I told you not to underestimate her. I'll expect payment for this. You and your fucking money. Hidan rolled his arm to test it. I swear to Jashin-sama, you are going to go down to hell and watch it burn for all eternity. Hell runs on money. I'd be fine, he snorted. So, still want to try to take her alone? He didn't answer, opting to go at her with the scythe again. Fu dodged it and moved back to gain distance, but the range of the scythe's cable made it difficult. Eventually, she landed and growled in a feral manner. Let's go, Lucky 7. Fu told her tenant. You got it, Fu girl. Chome responded, releasing its chakra. Fu became shrouded and her chakra became greenish. Her cloak was fully formed and she sprouted a single tail. Hidden art. The cylinder on her back released hundreds of smaller larvae, who evolved at an accelerated pace and rapidly became flying, horned beetles with sharp mandibles. Beetle rush. The insects swarmed the priest that tried to avoid them, but they were too fast and numerous, latching onto him and impaling him with their horns, draining chakra from his body like needles in the process. Blood flowed from the wounds, and the beetles began to shine a brilliant green. Hidan tried moving but was unable to, so he shot a glance at his partner, who sighed. Something shot out of Kakuzu's cloak, a demonic tiger made of black threads and a mask. In a single moment, it breathed out a sea of flames that consumed Hidan with the beetles, and barreled towards Fu. The Jinchuriki went through hand seals and took a deep breath. Water style. Water wall. Fu spit out an enormous amount of water converted by her chakra and spiraled around her. The heat met the waves and cooled, releasing steam that was only kept at bay by the spiraling shield redirecting it. Once the flames died down, Fu released the wall. Kakuzu, what the hell, man? You set my head on fire. The priest of the cursed god whined while he patted out the flames, tangled in his cable somehow from swatting the beetles earlier. Oops, he replied half-heartedly, withdrawing his masked tiger back into his body. My mistake. This is looking bad. I should regroup and try and indirect withdrew the single tail, sprouted her wings while in cloak form, and took off again, only for the black threads around Kakuzu's arms to fly out and pierce her limbs and body, avoiding vital spots. Two of the masks emerged and fired a combination of fire and lightning balls at her repeatedly, before slamming her into the ground and causing her cloak and wings to retreat. Who the fuck told you to interfere? Hidan roared, finally getting his cable untangled. I saw an opening and I took it, Kakuzu pointed out. She can fly and this is her terrain, we'd never catch her if she took off. Gah! Fu screamed, as the threads finished completely piercing her arms and legs to keep her pinned. Nothing personal, girl, it's just business, the elderly man told her. If you want to blame the village for turning you into a container, feel free. You said you were taken before, the dark priest said, releasing the scythe once again to pierce her. I wonder if they'll want what's left after I'm done. I'm sorry, a tear fell from Fu's eyes, as scythe closed in. Naruto. With Naruto. Naruto's left arm burned while he crossed the upper half of the land of fire, a scorching heat passing from the boundless orange step seal he set up in conjunction with Fu's seal. It would only alert him when someone he applied his version of his father's famous technique was in trouble. Fu's in trouble. He disappeared in an orange flash, reappearing above Fu near Taki. Seeing her pinned down and the incoming scythe blade, he pulled out the rod and poured chakra into the seal, shaping it into his monk's spade. Tossing it at an angle, crescent end first, it flew and severed the threads holding her down, and then pinning the cable of the scythe down, throwing it off course. What the fuck? Hidan looked up. Get away from her. Naruto roared in anger, shaping Ara's Engen 3 times the normal size and generating a chakra chain like his mother. Swinging it down like the hammer of justice, it smashed into Hidan and threw up a cloud of dirt and grass, leaving a crater in the ground with spreading cracks and one priest. Rasengan flail. Kakuzu caught a glimpse of Naruto's face once the hood came down and he cradled Fu. Whisker marks, the Kyuubi container. I've seen those cloaks before, Itachi and Kisame, Naruto recalled the previous run-in he had with the pair. Are you after her because of her tenant? What do you think, dumbass? Hidan chuckled, getting out of the crater that Naruto's Rasengan flail pounded him into and freeing his weapon. A good portion of the cloak and a bit of his skin was torn from the rotation and impact of the blow. Although it goes against my religion to take you two alive, you're still Akatsuki's prey. Dumbass, don't give away information like that, Kakuzu berated him. What the fuck does it matter? Hidan rolled his shoulder. He and his little bitch are coming along with us. As a bonus, we get to piss off Itachi and Kisame. Fu, can you stand? Naruto asked her softly. She nodded and stood weakly. Naruto got in front of her, grabbing his rod off the ground, and stood between her and the others. Get ready to fall back, you're better at guerrilla tactics and I'm better at close range. Don't underestimate them, or you'll die, Kakuzu warned him. Fuck that to goddamn hell. You should listen to your partner, Naruto told Hidan, making a gesture behind his back for Fu to get ready to act. Fu caught the signal. I pity him for having to work with someone like you. I think I would have killed you by now, if I were him. Okay, she whispered under her breath, before she inhaled subtly. If only I could, Kakuzu sighed. Hidden art. Hiding in scale powder. Fu exhaled, releasing a cloud of powder over the area. Naruto closed his eyes as light reflected off the powder and showed why Chome means, light bringer, to the two. Utilizing the distraction, Kakuzu and Fu wisely used the chance to get some distance and hide, while Naruto stepped back from the swearing priest, who was flailing his scythe about, and started gathering his chakra. Where'd the bitch go? Hidan looked around. Fine, I'll get her after I take care of you. That damn hit hurt. You've made 2 mistakes today. Naruto built up his chakra to the point that an aura was forming around him. The first mistake you made was attacking Fu. Oh yeah, Hidan chuckled, as he twirled his chain scythe in hopes of getting a taste of the new Jinchuriki. What was the second? Hiding or not, you and the other one are still in my territory. Naruto clapped his hand and closed his eyes, visualizing a square around him, extending in all directions for up to several hundred meters. Opening his eyes suddenly and exhaling, he released the aura in a burst and created the invisible sealed space, filling it with chakra that caused the zombie duo's skin to tingle as it washed over them. Only visible sensors are those who can see chakra. 8 Spade Art. Temple of Enlightenment, Naruto thought, having no intention of announcing his technique's name. He could feel the presence of everything in his territory, and the amount of chakra floating all around would mask the original as long as he did not channel more. Even the location of Fu, who was hidden within the foliage roughly 50 meters away, and the Heart Stealer, hiding to the northwest on the tree branch, behind a thicket of leaves, did not escape him. Normally the technique was used in a burst rather than a maintained area, but with his reserves that wasn't a problem. The main downside was that maintaining the shape of the territory made using the Rasengan even more difficult since it was the highest level shape manipulation, so he held out his foot-long rod. The seals on it made it easier to maintain the form of weapons that he visualized, a mode lock on the shape, so to speak. The kid has been missing for 4 years. Kakuzu released the mask that held his lightning heart. It spouted threads and took a form of a bipedal thing that couldn't be considered play it safe and risk one heart to see what he's capable of, instead of being caught off guard. He felt the scythe blades displacing his chakra and approaching him from the front, at a left diagonal angle, so he formed the image of a sword he found in the hidden at Uzushio. It was double-edged and straight, unlike the katanas commonly used, and had the crest of the Uzumaki clan on it. Releasing chakra into the rod, a chakra version of the blade shaped with the rod as the handle. Sharpening the edges of the chakra, he swung it in an arch and deflected the blades into the ground, releasing a pulse of the sharpened chakra in the process. The technique, the destruction strike, was a skill taught to the samurai at the Land of Iron. The crescent arc flew and cut into the Jushinist's torso. His blood painted the grass, and the force knocked him back a few feet. Fucking hell. That hurt, you bastard. Hidan roared. Withdrawing his scythe, he charged at Naruto. When the blonde felt lightning chakra enter his domain from above and leapt back, the bolt barely piercing his cloak and tearing off a handful of cloth. He avoided the rain of thunder and felt the displacement coming from his right side, forcing him to duck and release another arch of sharpened chakra at Hidan, carving a chunk out of his stomach, before dodging again. He's good. He avoided lightning release. False darkness without looking, Kakuzu mused. Let's test how good. The creature leapt through the trees and fired the bolts like tendrils. Naruto dodged, until Hidan closed the gap and tried a frontal assault. The two warriors danced, dodged, and ducked the blade that their opposite wielded while bolts lashed out and tried to hit them. Well, Naruto dodged completely, Hidan, not so much. Watch it, Kakuzu, Hidan screamed, smoke rising from his body due to the repeated strikes. Hidden art. Insect gathering, Fu muttered from her hiding place, her chakra spread out in the form of a net that scoured a wide radius of the forest. All the insects of the forest gathered to her, feeding on the lines of chakra and committed themselves of her command. She sent them out to deal with the Heart Stealer, while her Naruto dealt with the priest. Enough. Naruto shot chakra chains from his left hand to bind Hidan, and severed his scythe-wielding arm and the cable in the process. Those odd-angled attacks were a pain to deal with. Twice. Really? Hidan roared, but Naruto ignored him and kicked the man into a tree, before releasing another crescent wave at the masked biped. The creature avoided the incoming arch by dropping down to ground level. Lightning element, Naruto smirked, and dashed forward. Let me show you a trick I learned from a Nadeshiko Kunoichi. Wind chakra was imbued upon his free fist. Avoiding the ball lightning that was shot towards him and avoiding lightning tendrils that invaded his territory, he cocked back the loaded fist. The mask harboring the lightning heart released a final burst of electricity that was too widespread to avoid, but with lower potency. He collapsed his territory onto his body and formed a layer of dense chakra to shield himself as he broke through. Hardliner. Gale Fist. Naruto slammed the fist into the mask of the deformed bipedal, which halted for a moment and then cracked slightly. The shockwave from the blow was released and the force of the impact fully registered, as the mask was crushed to the point that pebbles were larger and the threads that stitched it together were shredded. Damn you! Hidan roared while standing and tearing off his ruined cloak, pulling a collapsible long spike out in the process with his hand. Another destruction strike and his remaining arm was gone too. Damn you again! How are you not dead yet? Naruto asked, while quietly sending chakra into the ground through his feet and manipulating the shape into chains. I'm a mortal dumbass. Hidan sneered. Wow. Naruto rubbed his chin. That's unfortunate. What are you smoking? Hidan looked at him like he was an idiot. How is being immortal unfortunate? Well, the chains shot out of the ground and bound the armless immortal. For one, it means that you'll live through the most painful experiences possible and suffer endlessly, such as if I were to place an explosive note on your head and trigger it. Also, that dust element technique I heard about while I was traveling would literally turn you to dust. I can't imagine a worse hell than being dust unconscious. Naruto withdrew a black scroll. I originally planned to use this on the masked bastard who led to the death of my parents, but I'll just seal you away for eternity in his place. I can always make another sealing scroll later. For once Hidan looked scared. Kakuzu. Uzumaki sealing art. Demonic chains of enforced binding. Naruto tossed the scroll into air. When it opened, countless black, barbed chains emerged with spike tips. They speared into his flesh and wrapped around it tightly, carving into his skin and letting the blood flow over them, before pulling him screaming. Kakuzu. The screaming stopped when the scroll rolled itself back up and the seal on it changed from black to red. Naruto grabbed it as it fell back down and sealed it into a storage seal written in invisible ink on his body. Well, there goes another one, Kakuzu muttered while hiding, lamenting that he had to explain to their leader how another one of his partners were taken out. I wonder how long until his immortality runs out if he doesn't sacrifice someone, a few years, maybe. Naruto eyed the scythe and spike. Shifting his eyes to the left and right, he put a bit of chakra into a seal on his body to store them in. Not like he'll need it anymore. I wonder if I can turn this guy in for a bounty in Yugakure. Now, let's find that other one. Naruto tossed the chakra blade into the air and clapped his hands, expanding his territory once again. It spread out in a wave and picked up the Heart Stealer and Fu's locations, before dissipating, and Naruto grabbed the rod that acted like the sword's handle and fired another destruction strike. Without warning, Kakuzu suddenly leapt back and avoided a swarm of insects that attacked from all sides, gathered by Fu. Leaning to his right, he avoided the attack from Naruto, who was closing in on him. To Jinchuriki, short a partner, he was down a heart, and the new one still had some tricks left. I'd rather not take my chances for now or I might be forced to kill you both, he said. I don't think leader will be too angry since I've gotten some good info. You think you can escape? Naruto asked sarcastically. Not if I don't do something to draw your attention. Kakuzu released the fire and wind masks. The two danced, before opening their mouths. Fire style. Searing migraine, wind style, pressure damage. Oh hell, Naruto swore, having seen combination techniques in the past. Stomping the ground and pumping his chakra into it before shaping it, he created chakra chains beneath the surface and sent them around him and Fu, dropping his territory since it would serve no purpose once the attack scattered his chakra and the control he had over it from the sheer force of the two colliding, combustible elements. The barriers were formed, the wind-fed flames erupted in a storm of fire and heat. Trees and forest life were forced out of the ground by the pressure, eaten by the flames, and killed by the heat. The barriers held, but were cracking fast, causing Naruto to force more chakra into the both of them and repair themselves even faster. The Heart Stealer had dove underground and left the scene by the time the damage had been done, and Naruto dropped the barrier and recreated his territory for a split second. Muttering a string of swear words that both Tayuya and Hidan would compliment him on, he ran back to Fu and picked up her battered body. The gashes on her caramel skin from the threads of the heart stealer were leaking her precious life blood. Quickly removing her outer clothing, Naruto applied the healing salve he had in hopes of slowing down the bleeding, but he needed more time to treat her or let Chome start healing her. He had to get away in case Akatsuki came back to finish the job, which was a damn near guarantee since the smart one managed to get away. The only good thing about this fiasco was one of them was sealed away, and this was the chance he told Shibuki about. This was the only chance he had to take her away. Fu. Naruto stroked her cheek. They'll come back for you, and this village would sooner see you dead than defend you. If we leave right now we can get away and they'll think Akatsuki captured you, but you have to leave your things at your home behind or they'll get suspicious. She didn't know what to say. This was a chance for her to leave her past behind and stay by his side. The only things she really treasured were the hair clip she had, her hive cylinder, and the necklace that Naruto gave her. Naruto's eyes said he would protect her as best he could, and if she wanted to stay, he'd lurk in the shadows and protect her from there, even at the cost of his life, or the risk of being captured by Konoha or Akatsuki. With a few silent words from Chome as well, she came to her decision. I know somewhere we can hide until I'm healed, she said, as she removed her forehead protector from around her arm and left it by the shreds of Hidan's Akatsuki cloak. Naruto threw his own tattered cloak around her and took off with her in his arms. When we get there, tell me everything about the one that got away, he urged her. I have the feeling we'll be seeing him again, and information is a part of winning battles. Akatsuki hideout. We got the Sanbi from the lake, Kisame chuckled. It was more of a threat when Yagura had control over it. Pain's projection looked at the empty spot, indicating someone was missing. Kakuzu sighed and faced up to it. We didn't get the Nanabi and I'm short a partner, again. I thought you said you couldn't kill him. Sasori mused. I hope you didn't fail because of your temper, Pain said, slightly mad since S-class ninja don't grow on trees and he'd been paying for anger management classes so he didn't have to keep replacing them. It wasn't me, this time, Kakuzu said, gaining the attention of the others. The fox container interfered. What? Kisami's projection scratched its chin. I thought he was somewhere in the land of wind, or maybe the lower half of the land of fire. He just popped up out of nowhere and rescued the Nanabi. I think they have a relationship considering all things. Ah, young love, Kisame said mockingly, they think. Right, Itachi. Itachi just stayed quiet and listened. He had good combat synergy with her in timing attacks, and seemed to know some decent tactics. Kakuzu looked at Kisame. I thought you said he was an idiot. He was the last time we met, Kisame shrugged. Not anymore, Kakuzu corrected. Once Hidan ran his mouth off about his immortality, he sealed him with some technique I never seen before. He had some kind of sensory technique that used his chakra and let him avoid attacks he couldn't possibly have seen coming without the Byakugan. He shattered one of my masks with a wind-based taijutsu technique he said he'd picked up in his travels, along with some of Tetsu's samurai techniques, barriers and bindings, and I'm pretty sure those two work as well as any of our teams. Kisame whistled. Kid's gotten better. I'm gonna enjoy when we meet again. Out of all of us, Kisame would stand the best chance since he relies on chakra constructs, Kakuzu added. That being said, I would take 2 teams to ensure his capture. It would seem so, Pain added in. We'll need to devote more information gathering into what he's capable of and where he's been. If he and the Nanabi are traveling together, we may have to move them to the last targets and strike in conjunction. Kakuzu, work together with Zetsu and gather some information on his movements and do some bounty hunting until we move on to the next one. If he does turn in Hidan for the bounty, we'll have Zetsu reclaim it. May as well let them enjoy it now before we tear them apart, Kisame shrugged. The rest looked at him with wide eyes. Even Itachi looked at him with a slightly raised eyebrow. What? He asked, silently thinking, I can't show a little respect for one of the few things in this world that probably isn't made of lies. I mean, come on, 2 Jinchuriki falling in love and sharing their pain. At least we don't have to hear a stream of swear words every time we meet now. They all silently agreed, maybe they should let him stay in the scroll. Regardless, Pain grabbed their attention. Deidara and Sasori, how long until you can go after the Ikibi? I have a meeting with a few of my spies this week about the traitors' movements and various other Jinchuriki locations. Sasori thought about it for a second. I don't like keeping people waiting. 5 days should be enough time. Good. Itachi and Kisame, head after the Gobi. Pain vanished, along with the rest. In Fu's hiding place, to the north of Taki, was a deep cave that Fu's insects informed her about when she was a child. It was hidden and was the home of a colony of glow worms that illuminated the ceiling above in the darkness, making it their nest. Having control over insects and wanting a place of her own, she made it a home away from home, just in case she just wanted to get away. She was currently lying on a flatted stone with a sheet under her, while she was on her stomach, naked, as Naruto ran an ink brush over the area where her tailbone was. That was where someone decided to seal Nanabe into her body, and so to modify the seal, he needed her to strip, honestly. Fu giggled like a school girl despite her injuries being only shallowly healed. The feel of the ink and brush on her skin as he applied the array was sensational. Alright Fu, Naruto put away the brush. I'm going to modify your seal to access more chakra to speed up the healing process from now on and then modify my boundless orange step array to activate easier and carry more than one person. Thank you, Naruto, she said while still feeling ticklish from the ink. Your father would be proud that you're following in his footsteps. I'm not following them exactly, he said. I can never be my father, nor will I try. But sealing is useful and attaching a seal to jump straight to your lover's side is a brilliant idea. I only regret the fox showed me the memories of their other activities as a couple. What's wrong, Kit? Kurama chuckled. I thought you'd enjoy seeing the night you were conceived. Lies and we both know it. Naruto snapped back. You're lucky I didn't rearrange the seal to look like Mom's mindscape did. Fu giggled at the argument between the two. And then he told us when we're in our joined mindscape how your parents were the inspiration for Jiraiya-sama's works when Lucky 7 referenced to how similar they were. Damn pervy sage for corrupting you with his trashy books. Naruto's eyebrow twitched. You should be thanking him, Fu smiled naughtily. Half of the things I did that night were from his work. She caught the look of terror on his face, not the one with your parents. He breathed out a sigh of relief, before getting serious again. Fu, once I apply chakra to finish the changes, it's going to hurt like the last time. I set up silencing seals, but. She took a deep breath and sat up, turning to face him. Can you hold me? He obliged, kissing her on her lips in the process and allowing her to rest her head on his shoulder, as his hands made their way to the sealing array. Ready. She nodded and he applied chakra. White-hot pain entered her body and destroyed her thought processes. All her body's pain receptors were firing into overdrive, and she let out a heart-rending scream and clenched his body tightly while sobbing. The pain lasted for only a minute, but to her it seemed like hours, and he hated to see her suffering. Once the minute passed, she slumped forward and he held her tighter, whispering into her ears repeatedly 2 words, I'm sorry. When her breathing stabilized, he laid her down gently. He didn't like modifying her seal unless he felt it was necessary because the sealing used wasn't exactly perfect. Seal masters were rare and few, and Taki was a small village that stayed secluded for their own protection. Perfecting the seal would take more time since he had to repair it rather than start from scratch, slowly unraveling it and then fixing it. The process would last far longer and she might not survive the procedure without being in a hospital, attended by someone at a high level of skill. Like Granny Tsunade, he muttered without realizing the words that slipped out of his mouth until a second later. No, she betrayed me, the village betrayed me. She was drunk at the time, she didn't mean it, a softer voice in his head whispered, before he crushed the thought with the memories of the abuse he suffered at the hands of the villagers. Accident or not, he snarled to himself. I finally got freedom from that hell hole, Granny Tsunade. I could forgive for her part in it with time, but the village as a whole, never. He shook himself out of his growing rage and focused on the next task at hand. He needed to inform Gaara of Akatsuki, and then deal with the summoning contract and send a message to Shibuki. Scribbling on the contact scroll, the words melted and would reappear on Gaara's copy. Biting his thumb and wiping blood over the stylized summoning seal on his arm, he clapped his hands and slammed them on the ground. Summoning. Taki's village council meeting room. At least we only lost a few genin, and the monster is gone, the elder Sake highlighted at the climax of the 4-hour-long damage assessment meeting. Shibuki wanted to be livid at their casual dismissal of Fu, leaving in the hands of the monsters that devastated their forest and killed their men, but what was done was done. Shibuki still had hope though, as he clenched a bit of fabric in his pocket that he recognized as Naruto's cloth from the last time they met. He found it when he inspected the battlefield, lodged between some of the debris. Their last conversation was when Naruto snuck into the village at night undetected, and entered Shibuki's office while he was alone and dealing with the enemy of all village leaders, no matter how large or small, paperwork. Naruto had a calm fury about him, controlled but volatile, and went on about how he expected Shibuki to have the villagers treat her better, not even bothering to hide his own status as a demon container. Shibuki claimed his point much like the late third Hokage. He could order them, but they could still circumvent his orders in spirit and he lacked the power to enforce things. Naruto flat out stated that she deserved a better life, and if he saw a chance and she wanted to leave, they couldn't stop him. Akatsuki was the chance, and while Shibuki only had this small clue to go on, he was willing to place his hope that Naruto took the chance. Still, he was a leader and her friend damn it and he was going to take steps to make Fu happy should she be alive. To be safe, Shibuki gained the elder's attention. I'd like to pass a motion to have Fu emancipated the village, even if post-mortem. Why so, young leader? Sake raised an eyebrow. Konoha won't be happy that the Biju we received from the first Hokage was taken lightly, and we won't have the manpower necessary to try and find, let alone fight, the people who took Fu. By emancipating her, we waive responsibility and can avoid political backlash if she somehow escaped their grasp. The debate was short-lived, as many of them didn't even want Fu back, even if she was alive. Being a demon container, on top of having been trained by Suian, made her a liability in their eyes, and if she somehow survived, they would have to waste manpower searching for her or protecting her. The reason emancipating someone wasn't often done was because compared to a banishment or exile, the paperwork was much worse and no one wanted to write or even review it. Which was good, since it would allow Shibuki to add in a few clauses that would benefit Fu, if his hope in Naruto wasn't misplaced. Politics was a pain to deal with, but no one said that good people were the ones who had to get screwed over. When he made his way to his office to undergo the hellish torture of paperwork, he found a surprise waiting for him on his desk. Are you Shibuki? It chirped and he nodded. I have a message from my boss. Suna 2 days later, Keisuke's office. Gaara was sitting in his office, still awaiting the arrival of a messenger from Naruto that would arrive soon. The contact scroll had showed a message sent by Naruto and it worried him quite a bit. It read, Gaara, there's an organization that is hunting Jinchuriki down called Akatsuki and they went after Fu. I sealed the one known as Hidan of Yukagura away, but the other, Kakuzu, escaped. From what Fu said, he shouldn't be alive and is listed as an S-class criminal in the bingo book, so check it when you get a chance. They claim to have been working in the same group as Itachi and Kisame, 2 other S-class criminals who attempted to catch me several years ago. Fu is with me and I'm keeping her safe, but her village won't protect her. Everyone but Shibuki believes that Akatsuki has captured her, and he had her emancipated so she's not tied down anymore. I'll send my summoning to set things up, wait for it to arrive in a few days. Your pal, Naruto Uzumaki. Gaara checked his bingo book and found all of them listed as S-class or cage level, aka, as the money really worth your life, to bounty hunters. That did not bode well if there was an organization of people like that after them. But for now, he had to deal with the issue of his drunken brother. Kankuro, Gaara droned. I know you're upset about how your date went, but maybe you should lay off the sake. I am fine, the puppeteer hiccuped. Yaos got matsuri, and I got sake. It was then that there was a tapping at the window of the office and they saw what looked to be a desert ferret, wearing an orange banana around its neck. It tapped again on the window and Kankuro opened it. It scurried to Gaara's desk and sat up on its hind legs. Are you Gaara of the desert? It asked in a squeaky voice. Kankuro looked at the ferret, then his drink, and then the ferret again, then he dumped the sake out the window. I think I should go to bed, night. He left the room. The ferret sweat dropped. Did I come at a bad time? No, Gaara answered, activating a privacy seal. It was actually highly convenient, and yes, I am Gaara of the desert. It chirped happily. Good. My boss sent for me and had me go all the way from Taki to get here in 2 days to see you. Somehow, I never imagined he would sign a ferret contract, Gaara mused, before he thought about where Naruto got it. The new Wind Daimyo had a lot of ferrets at her home, and given their resources, it wouldn't have been a surprise that she would somehow land a contract with them and learn to mold chakra to use it. Rumor has it she reverse summoned herself to their home and somehow charmed them into giving her the contract. Dad said he didn't seem like the type either, the little ferret chuckled, before bopping itself on the head. Oh right, I should explain. I'm a messenger ferret. I'm the slowest of the 5 fastest, but I require less chakra than my brothers and sisters. My name is Pace. Boss said for me to activate a seal he gave me in order to call him once I was in your office and you were alone. It looked around the room, just to be sure, and then it jumped to the floor, sending chakra into the seal Naruto had given him to send the message to Naruto. An orange flash brightened the room, and 2 people suddenly appeared while Gaara walked around the desk. I don't think I'll get used to that, Fu muttered, wrapped in Naruto's cloak and holding her head. It gets better after the 10th time, Naruto said offhandedly, turning to Gaara. Yo. Interesting technique, Uzumaki, the cage looked at Fu. And you must be Fu from Taki. I am Gaara of the desert, 5th cage and Jinchuriki of Shukaku. Nice to finally meet you, she said, hugging him in a friendly embrace. Naruto has told me so much about you. Well, this is new, he droned, while Naruto chuckled nervously. The ferret chirped to get his attention. Did I do good, boss? Pace asked. You did great, Pace. Naruto tossed him a piece of dried meat that he kept in a storage seal. Tell your dad that the seal I put on you and the others isn't permanent. Kana said that the ferrets loved the dried meat treats. Judging from the sparkles in Pace's eyes, she wasn't wrong. Thanks. The ferret said before vanishing in a plume of smoke. He reminds of Gamakichi and his brother. Naruto sighed, wondering how those 2 were after all this time. Now that is handled, Gaara, finally free of the girl, sat back in his chair. Let's start by sharing the information we know about this Akatsuki. Naruto and Fu sat down in chairs and told him everything they knew. Hidan had some kind of immortality and they had to seal him away. Kakuzu actually fought the first Hokage and lived, not to mention what Fu knew about the Earth Fear Grudge technique. Gaara made a mental note to request that Shibuki give him all the details. Before I was banished, Itachi and his partner Kisame tried to capture me. Naruto wrapped up the last bit of information. Pervy sage. I mean Jiraiya was the one who drove them away, so he knows more on it, I'm sure. I'll bring up the topic next time a Konoha group comes by, Gaara told him. In the past you would have been more eager to test yourself against such an enemy. Maybe, but I was also a genin who won a match by farting on accident, Naruto chuckled, before becoming dead serious. These guys aren't a joke, Gaara. They're hunting Biju, which takes major balls, and personally, while Hidan was an idiot, he was skilled enough to warrant a threat. The book lists something about a ritual that made Hidan cause injuries to his opponent by licking their blood. If I didn't have the training from the temple and my travels to fall back on or didn't reach Fu in time, we wouldn't be having this discussion. Good point. Gaara acknowledged. Gaara, this means that you'll be a target too, cage or not. Naruto looked him in the eye. You're my friend and I don't want to risk leaving you in your own in case one of them comes after you, so I want to do to you the same thing I did to Fu, placing a seal that will allow me to jump to your location through a space-time jutsu. It was based on my father's flying thunder god technique, but unlike him I can only place it on living things from animals to humans right now. That technique was, yes, Minato Namikaze's signature technique, along with the Rasengan. Naruto nodded. They were both my birthright as his and Kushina Uzumaki's son. Gaara blinked and he nodded. I've seen his picture and noticed the resemblance a few days ago, but I thought it would be best for you to tell me yourself. How no one in your village knew escapes me, let alone how they would treat their fourth heir. That's part of the reason I no longer like Konoha, Naruto said coldly. Forget that I'm the son of the fourth. I learned humility growing up, and rational thinking during my stay at the Wind Temple, but the fact that they would treat any orphan like they did over something they had no control over was something I'm not willing to overlook. That was the reason my mother hid her status as the previous Jinchuriki of Kurama the Kyuubi. Naruto explained how someone manipulated the fact that when he was born the seal weakened. The masked man arrived and broke Kyuubi out to unleash his vengeance on Konoha. His father and mother died, but the Kyuubi caught the memory of them sealing their chakra into the seal. I am mad that Kurama inevitably did lead to my parents' death, but the blame isn't solely on him. It was the balance of power that the nations are striving for and the bastard who had a Sharingan that caused it all. Kurama and his siblings only followed the words of their father and they were betrayed by humanity. I'm working on making an array that will block out yin chakra from affecting them, rendering them immune to genjutsu. Jinchuriki who have their partner's backing are protected, but we can't do the same to the Biju because we normally only pull out their chakra, not the other way around. I see, Gaara said, digesting the information. I'll consent to having the seal installed once it is finished, as well as the time-space technique. Shukaku and I aren't on the best of terms, but even he doesn't deserve to be enslaved to the point his own thoughts were manipulated. I'd like to apply the seal as soon as possible, Naruto said. Also, Fu and I have a place to crash for a few days. I'll need to get her some new clothes and things since we left most of her stuff behind. Shibuki had her things sealed away, but the ferret I sent out won't be able to get it here for a few days. You can stay at my manor, Gaara said. His father had a place that could easily house 10 people without any problems, and since the only people staying there were him, his siblings, and Matsuri, there was enough free space. Of course, Matsuri slept separate from Gaara for now. They couldn't advance in their relationship for various reasons right now. One was too nervous and the other was too stoic. By the way, Gaara added, the Wind Daimyo is still in the village. I believe she will be departing tomorrow morning. You should visit her beforehand. I can't wait to meet her, Fu chimed in. I wanted to see the other girl who had my Naruto open up after his time in the Wind Temple. Can we go tonight? It's not too late. Certain gears in Naruto's head were turning at the thoughts. A night with 2 girls, one of whom has already consented into adding another one, and a good chance of the other being willing. He wouldn't force it of course, but maybe if he taught Fu how to use shadow clones, even though he couldn't make the seals for it, he knew the proper chakra balance and could explain the signs and motions. Jackpot, he muttered absent-mindedly. With a certain pervy sage. Something potentially wonderful for research is going to happen, the white-haired sage reached for a notebook but froze. But where? Konoha one day later, Hokage's office. Tsunade wasn't very happy right now. Just when Naruto reappeared, the organization known as Akatsuki that Jiraiya was tracking started to move again. She received notice of the subsequent attack, capture, and then emancipation of Taki's Jinchuriki by Akatsuki judging from the scrap of cloak they sent. She needed to know where Naruto was, but the Wind Daimyo and Cage weren't exactly being helpful at the moment. The responses were written in formal tone, but the underlying message was clear from both of them. Who I hire is none of your business since he isn't yours anymore, from the Wind Daimyo. He was here, but I didn't have the authority or a reason to detain him nor inform you of his arrival at the time or future arrivals, from Gaara. She didn't blame them. Even though she reduced the civilian council by a third in the subsequent years, surprisingly with the elders' help, they were still a thorn to deal with. Although it helped that a few more of them were caught being involved in something they shouldn't have been and killed in the process. She thinks Danzo might be cleaning house on the more liable members and sending a message to the rest. He probably didn't like the whole sealing the weapons abilities deal and the resulting fallout either. Still, she had to send someone to Suna on the off chance that Naruto was there, to warn him of the danger and bring him back. Preferably by choice rather than force. That was when the team walked in. Kakashi, Sai, Sakura, and Sasuke. Tsunade called out to the Junin and his Chunin team. You are to go to Suna and personally inform the Kazekage of some sensitive information involving a certain group. Unofficially, you are to see if Naruto Uzumaki is there and convince him to return to the village peacefully, force as an absolute last resort. So, the rumors were true then, Kakashi mused, a gleam of hope in his visible eye. You'd think ninja would know better than to spread rumors on sensitive information, Tsunade rubbed her head. Neji hadn't said anything to the public, but somehow the information leaked that he was in Suna with the Wind Daimyo and left in the cover of night, and that led to another council meeting. After all this time, Sasuke closed his eyes. We've finally gotten a lead on him. But can you honestly blame him for not wanting to return? No, I can't, Tsunade added. But, the information that Gaara needs passed along to him by Kakashi is relevant to why we need to get to him, for his own safety. We'll have the village protect him like it should have been. Tsunade took great pride in the fact that she had broken the Avengers' desire to join Orochimaru. After he recovered, she personally dragged him off with Jiraiya for a week. Most of the public thought she put him under a genjutsu to make him more sympathetic to Naruto, but that wasn't the case. Genjutsu would have been nicer. Instead, she showed him the medical reports of what the cursed seal did to the Sound Five and how it devastated their organs and internal workings, how it affected their mentality, and then showed him all the experiments that they knew Orochimaru to do. That put a small wedge in his faith in the man, before they forced his Sharingan to activate with a seal and memorize every detail and the pictures of the victims before and after he got done. That took about 3 days, and with the Sharingan, he wouldn't forget it. Then they took him into a separate room in the Hokage's archives, filled with cabinets of reports that lined the room. They were all about Naruto. Every single incident he was blamed for and proven innocent, attempted murders, and other things. That took 3 more days, and once again, he wouldn't forget it. Naruto knew pain even greater than his own, and now Sasuke knew it. Lastly, she told him that there was evidence that Sarutobi left to Jiraiya, originally planning to have Jiraiya take the hat. When Jiraiya found out Itachi was in Akatsuki, he told Sarutobi, and the old man informed him of what really happened to the Uchiha and what they were planning, leaving all the mission details and scrolls with Jiraiya, as well as a psychological evaluation of Itachi and Sarutobi's personal thoughts on the fact that they believed Itachi wouldn't kill the kids and he couldn't have done it alone. His brother was looking for death and had left him to do so and avenge the clan. He loved his family, but what they were planning to do, they were going to kill clan heirs and civilians in the process, children too, and weaken the village in their takeover. His brother loved the village enough to betray his family in hopes of avoiding another war. But honestly, he had horrible people skills. Sasuke didn't like what his family had become before their end, and he couldn't completely forgive Itachi or the village. He wasn't loyal to the village itself, but for Tsunade to open his eyes to his mistake in trying to follow Orochimaru and revealing a truth the rest would let be taken to the grave, he had trusted her and the pervert sage for the better part of 4 years. It also helped that they didn't constantly try to kiss up to him. When will people learn? Sakura said nothing, wisely. She had too damn much potential to not be a medic, but the little tart was still nursing a grudge over her precious Sasuke being hurt and blaming the fact that he wouldn't return her affections on that. Honestly, how did she expect the mission to end when he left on his own free will, there was going to be fighting involved. Kakashi went through the motions of having lost a student regardless and realized he could have done a better job with both Naruto and Sakura. He tried to put more effort into teaching Sakura in the Genjutsu department now, but she wouldn't stand out more until she stopped trying to win Sasuke's heart and blaming it on Naruto. Sigh. Well, he's Sigh. That should explain enough. You leave in 2 hours to head towards the border between the Land of Wind and the Land of Fire, she ordered.